judgment. I will just restate what the city attorney has said on numerous occasions. And what we've been trained is that even if there is not a violation technically of the code about conflicts of interest and whether or not recusal is required under the law, the appearance of impropriety matters. It matters a lot. So commissioners, that is the totality of our agenda. We have an opportunity to discuss future agenda items. Any future agenda items anyone wants to pick?
Commissioner Taniguchi, are you recused on this matter?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Where's my seat?
Anyone with a microphone?
Wherever there's a microphone.
Okay. Want to start calling folks up?
We have the first speaker is Robin Rather.
And I have to claim that I am kind of an expert of parking garages. I was the architect for the Palmer Event Center parking garage, and I was also architect for the first large major parking garage on the UT campus. I think that much needed out there. The cars are going to be coming to the park, right? And surface parking, I've seen some of the plans for surface parking under the trees, and that's really nice, but that's so limited. I hope that we can kind of tie into the Dougherty garage. I was so much for the Dougherty project because it had that parking garage, but then that's why we kind of turned it down, because the garage wasn't funded at that time, and apparently maybe it's going to come back. But I'm a firm believer in parking garages, and the way they're laid out in this plan, I'm really for that. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Commissioners, are there other questions? I have, I guess, one question, which is to kind of go back to the definitions upon which a conflict of interest violation rely, and namely affected. And I want to go back to 2-7-21, where the definition says the following: in determining whether a person, entity, or property is or was affected by a vote or decision, it shall not be necessary to prove the actual existence or occurrence of an economic effect or consequence if such effect or consequence would be reasonably expected to exist or occur. And I'll ask the question of the complainant and then the respondent about what economic effect or consequence would be reasonably expected to exist or occur as a result of the decision or vote that the respondent took.
The respondent spoke on behalf of elements of the Zilker Park Vision Plan that were advanced by the collective. So Mr. Taniguchi informally participated in the collective on behalf of the Zilker Botanical Gardens. They desperately want parking garages. And so then he voted to recommend the vision plan. So he argued on the board, on the commission, for elements of the Zilker Park, vision plan, and then he voted to recommend it to council. So I want to remind you that if the Zilker Park vision plan is not adopted by council, then there will be no umbrella nonprofit, because the document must exist in order for the review process for a nonprofit to begin. So the Zilker Park Vision Plan has to pass council. It has to pass through boards and commissions. If we have people who are board members of the nonprofit that wants to be the park partner for that park, we can't have them sitting on commissions voting to recommend the passage of the plans that enable them to do that. So if the vision plan does not exist, then a unified nonprofit for Zilker Park cannot exist. The document must exist for the review process to begin. So if the question, in my opinion, is the Zilker Park Vision Plan itself as a document. Why is it so important for these nonprofits that have joined together? Why is it so important for them to advance this document? If you look at the Zilker 351 website, you will see that that is their main purpose, is to advance the Zilker Park Vision Plan. So this is their first step in becoming a level A partner with PARD. You have to be a level A partner to realize revenue.
Okay, thank you. Just to rephrase what I think I heard, it's that getting the vision plan passed is a necessary condition to getting a partnership, which is a necessary condition to revenue generation.
Exactly. Without the vision plan, they cannot begin the review process to become a partner. And then they would have to go through. Conflict of interest with a nonprofit, that I feel like it should be expanded to if your vote benefits the nonprofit that you represent, that's a benefit that is realized. And whether or not Mr. Taniguchi ever personally enriches himself, is immaterial. We have people sitting on boards and commissions who are representing organizations that stand to gain financially from their votes.
Okay, thank you.
Could it just be given or appointed? That is not known. That is not specified in the vision plan. But Zilker 351 is positioning itself to be that organization. They are an umbrella nonprofit of the nonprofits that operate in Zilker Park. So in Mr. Taniguchi's letter that he sent to the Parks Board, he begins by saying, aside from being a board member of Zilker 351, a new nonprofit organization created to help steward Zilker Park. So they were created to be that. That is why I don't like it that he's sitting on a board, arguing for the vision plan.
Can I respond?
Not at this time. I'll let Commissioner Williams ask his question.
Mr. Taniguchi, you used the term slam dunk maybe 5 seconds ago with regards to whether or not Zilker 351 thought that there would be this unified nonprofit referenced in the vision plan. Correct?
Well, I'm not sure if I meant slam dunk as far as getting selected as a unified group, but I'm saying that we really need to have a private partnership with somebody.
But my question is whether or not Zilker 351 would like to be that unified nonprofit.
Oh, absolutely, because we feel like we have the support of so many groups that have been involved in these efforts up to now. And I think that, our stakeholder group is awesome, and I think we have a lot of momentum moving forward, and I think it's in the positive way, and I hope we can move forward in that way. But if I said slam dunk, I have to retract that statement.
I have no further questions.
Commissioners, any other questions?
No bones about the fact that they want to be that nonprofit. Like, it's them, okay? Like, they're the ones. They have pushed for infrastructure that will be incentivized for commercialization in the park. So I don't know if you've been to Waterloo Park, but they have a unified nonprofit. They had a vision planning process. So once they had a vision plan, then this nonprofit was able to begin the review process. So the infrastructure that was built in Waterloo Park is now maintained, operated by the Waterloo Greenway, and they are allowed to realize the revenue from operating those facilities, that infrastructure. So this is the same thing, okay? This infrastructure that was advocated for by these collective members is, if it is built in Zilker Park and this unified nonprofit becomes the level A partner, then they will be able to, it will be a vast money-making operation.
Can, before I turn it over to respondents, so go ahead.
Chair Soberon, I just kind of want to point back to some of Mr. Taniguchi's commentary that we had during the questions, which is Zilker 351 wants to be this nonprofit. They want to control maintenance. They want to control the development of parks and garages. These things mean money, funding from the city. And so I understand, like, we don't want to create such a broad opening here in our definition of funding, but the real issue isn't whether or not there's funding, it's about this conflict of interest that exists. And I think we've had a lot of talk about appearance of impropriety, and that is not necessarily in our rules. But the purpose of the rules is to preserve the integrity of these processes and ensure that the public can have faith and trust in how these processes unfold. And so the appearance of impropriety is really at the core of what we're here today to resolve, which is whether or not these conflicts of interest clout this process or taint this process so much that we have the public here arguing to us, the Ethics Review Commission, that, hey, something smells, something's wrong, and by the way, we don't have any real subpoena power to formulate our own investigation.
No, and I want to be 100% clear that I am, like, that's precisely the kind of concern that I have, and what I want to make sure, and the reason that I'm thinking really hard about this motion is precisely because I think there's room to explore what the implications of these decisions are, what Zilker 351 is doing, what there's a there potentially, but I want to make sure that I'm being clear and consistent about what a funding decision is, or a voter decision regarding funding means. So, I think potentially a final hearing might be helpful in fleshing out the arguments for whether or not the decisions that were made at that meeting amounted to funding decisions. This is me thinking out loud in the moment, for the record. Go ahead, Commissioner Williams.
Chair, I would argue to you that you only need a rational basis from which to come to this conclusion, from which to demand this investigation, from which to request these records. So you just need a rational basis. You do not need to prove at this point in time that it is true or certain.
Right. I'm not trying to prejudge what the facts are or will be, trying to correctly understand and interpret this specific code provision, this specific rule and law. Are there other comments or questions